Hello and welcome. Today I'm gonna tell you the story of the Black Witch. This story is from the Nightmare Island book, and I'm going to give you an excerpt from the book. This video contains spoilers from the book, so be aware of that. And like always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe before watching the video. Thank you and enjoy. Just then, they hear the loud cracking noise from behind them. They jumped around just in time to see a ghost crawl out from behind the veil of fog. Crawling was a nice way to put it. However, it wasn't the most accurate description of how she moved. As she moved towards them, her bones seemed to snap at inhuman angles. They cracked as she walked. "It's the Black Witch," Rick said with a notable amount of fear in his voice. He took a few steps backward, whispering to John and Audrey. She lived an extraordinary evil life, so much so that when she was finally killed, the devil himself bring her back to life. At the sound of his voice, the Black Witch stopped moving. Her body stood still, but her head twisted around like an owl to face him. In doing so, they heard her neck bones breaking several times over. Her face was the most horrible thing they could imagine. Greasy black hair came down across her face, almost hiding the dark pits where her eyes should have been. Based on the scars that covered her face, it was reasonable to believe that her eyes had been clawed out. Of the teeth that she had, several were black and rotten. The skin and muscles on one side of her upper lip had been torn off, revealing her skull from her upper jaw to where her nose should have been. In the place of her nose, there were just two holes where the cartilage once was. "Did the devil do that to her too?" John asked Rick in a whisper. "No. Back when she was alive, she had killed many people who came near her cabin. Eventually, she was hunted down by the villagers who had gotten up the nerve to face her. They mortally wounded her and then set her cabin on fire with her inside. Unfortunately for the Black Witch, she lived through the fire but was injured too much to move. Afterward, the buzzard had come down upon her cabin, having smelled the charred remains of her body. They picked out her eyes and tore off chunks of her face while she lay there unable to do anything about it. Eventually, she died due to her injuries. That's when the devil decided she hadn't been punished enough and sent her back for more. The Black Witch was on all fours now, her head twisted from side to side. Just then, she let out a piercing scream, leaving them all to press their hands to their ears to keep them from going deaf. Then the witch crawled slowly forward, letting out a long croak. She tilted her head again, as if she was listening. John realized that because she had no eyes, she was using a form of echolocation, creating sound and then listening for the verb to be able to tell what she was around, just like a bat. "When I tell you to run, you run," Rick whispered to John and Audrey. The Black Witch stopped in her tracks. Her lack of sight had created an opportunity for her hearing to become advanced beyond measure. She had heard Rick's voice, and she recognized him. This was the man who had captured her and put her inside a box. For years, she had screamed endlessly trying to get out, unable to do anything but press against the underside of the casket stone lid. It had been years since she had heard his voice, but it was the last thing she had heard before put in the box. This gave her ample time to reply that voice repeatedly in her head, and she was ready for revenge. Rick slowly stepped to his left, putting some distance between himself and where John and Audrey stood. He stepped on a twig. It snapped, causing the Black Witch's head to tilt in his direction. "Run!" Rick screamed at John and Audrey. At that moment, the Black Witch launched herself towards Rick. Her fingers clawed at the ground as she moved, ripping the earth apart as she made her deadly ascent towards the man who had imprisoned her for years. At the same time, John grabbed Audrey's hand and pulled her towards the boathouse. Audrey looked back over her shoulder at Rick, but there was nothing that they could do for him now. Rick moved to get out of the way, but there was nothing that he could do to stop the Black Witch. Without the herb, there was nothing stopping her from attacking him. She leapt from a crouched position, hitting Rick's body and bring him down to the ground. John didn't bother turning around. He didn't want to put on an image to the awful sounds that he was hearing. It was the sound of the bones breaking, of arms being ripped out of their sockets. They could hear Rick's screams of pain all the way down to the boathouse. Suddenly, with a snap, Rick's screams ended. And that's all you need to know about the Black Witch. If you want the full story, I recommend to read the book. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And please, tell me your thoughts. What did you think of the story?